Thousands of people drive along Clashland every day. Geoffrey Barrow will tell us just where that is in tonight's edition of Ask Geoffrey. Geoffrey, good to see you.
Glad to be here.
Our first question comes from Grays Lake. I remember a neighborhood of brick homes that seemed to be on the DePaul University campus. Do those homes still stand? Who built them?
All right, well, these are the McCormick row houses, a Chicago landmark, 56 privately owned homes, sort of right surrounded by the DePaul University campus there. They were built by the McCormick Theological Seminary, which occupied what is now the DePaul campus, part of it, from 1863 to the 1970s. Just to sort of give you an idea of where this is, it's just east of the Red Line L tracks along from Fullerton to Belden, and actually some of the homes are face inward around that beautiful sort of green, or in the winter white space that you just saw in the clip. Cyrus Hall McCormick of...
It's like at Halstead in Belden.
Yes, between Halstead and the L tracks there. So Cyrus Hall McCormick of Reaper fame is the one who brought the McCormick Theological Seminary to Chicago. He gave them $100,000 to move here, to endow some professorships. They moved here in the 1860s from Indiana. His wife, Nettie McCormick, went on to be the big benefactor and took a great interest in the buildings on campus, including the building of these row houses in the 1880s. She's said to have tromped around in high rubber boots on the construction site, supervising the planting of trees and climbing ladders.
Very hands-on.
Yeah, very, very hands-on. She sent the architects to London to examine a square in London that she liked. So she was very involved in the construction of these row homes. Now, when they were built, they were middle-class housing. Rents were $40 to $45 for a three-story row house in Lincoln Park.
You don't see a lot of that anymore.
Not a lot of that anymore.
No.
But flash forward to the 1970s, the seminary moves to Hyde Park, and the future of these row homes is really in doubt. Many had been converted to rooming houses. The neighborhood was considered dangerous. They were run down. The people who lived in them, the renters, formed an association called the Seminary Townhouse Association, acronym STAY, and they bought up these row homes and saved them from the wrecking ball. They've lovingly restored them.
They're really handsome.
They're beautiful. One of them recently sold for $900,000, and
wow.
Two are currently on the market for about $1 million.
One of our former colleagues, Royal Kennedy, used to live in one of those.
Yes,
and
that's right.
I visited her there once, and they are very cool inside. Our next question comes from Bolingbrook. There are two streets just south of Jackson Park, right next to each other, named Constance and Bennett. Is there any relationship to the actress of the same name?
It's a coincidence, but no, they are not related to the actress of the same name, and I'll talk about the streets in a minute, but first, who was Constance Bennett?
Good first question.
Yes. She was an American actress born in 1904, and look there on that clip. She gets top billing, even higher billing than Cary Grant.
That's impressive.
She starred with him in the movie Topper. She made her film debut at age 14 in the silent film Valley of Decision, which was written and starred her father, who was also an actor, Richard Bennett. She made the transition to Hollywood talkies and was in more than 60 films, everything from light comedies to dramas. At one point, according to one website, she was the highest paid actress in Hollywood.
Look at that glamour. My goodness.
Isn't it great? She has a star on the Walk of Fame. She was married a total of 5 times, once to the ex-husband of Gloria Swanson, died in 1965 at age 60. And a really great fact, she was actually the aunt of talk show host Morton Downey Jr. So, now the streets. So, Constance Avenue is at 1850 East, and Bennett Avenue is at 1900 East.
That is a funny coincidence.
Yeah, isn't it? They start at 67th Street, sort of south of Jackson Park, and go south from there. But no connection. Constance Avenue is named for Lake Constance. For Constance, Germany, which sits on the shore of Lake Constance along the Rhine. This is according to the book Streetwise Chicago. And Bennett Avenue was named for John Ira Bennett, who was president of the Hyde Park Board of Trustees. Hyde Park was actually a suburb when he lived there in the 1870s.
Mystery solved. Our third question comes from Tim Later of Edgewater, and the question is, how did Clashland, the confluence of Clark Street and Ashland Avenue between Ridge and Devon, come about?
All right.
Clashland, I never heard that.
Well, Clark and Ashland, right. I think he coined the term, I'm not sure. But this is one of these map things, Phil. You're going to have to stay with me on this. Now, as you can see from the map, Clark Street comes together with Ashland in the south there. Then it heads north, and then it splits off from Clark Street again. So Clark and Ashland, for a stretch there, are combined. How in the world did that happen? Well, first let's talk about Clark Street. Clark Street's an old Indian trail. Later was the road to Green Bay, and it cuts through there on a diagonal. Okay, but our friend Dennis McClendon, the cartographer, pointed out that in the early 1800s, the property there was all sectioned off along these section lines that surveyors had laid out. And apparently Clark Street ran up against one of these section lines, and then, as you can see, it jogs and goes straight, and then it angles again. And he believes that that's so that the street wouldn't actually run across somebody's private property. It would follow the section line north, okay? Ashland didn't even exist up there until, well after 1910. You can see from this map, Ashland actually stops south of Bryn Mawr before the present-day Clashland convergence. So what happened? Well, Ashland and many other arterial streets in Chicago were widened as part of a big street widening project that happened in the early 20th century. And Ashland was also extended north. And since Ashland ran along that same section line, it merged in with Clark Street, and Clark and Ashland became this very wide stretch of merged streets. And then it got a little farther north, and they diverge again. Early traffic engineers apparently thought there'd be a lot of traffic there because it's 125 feet wide, which is unusually wide. I think that's what our viewer was noticing. And since there was plenty of space, a 26-foot high war memorial was placed at the south end of this Clashland convergence, kind of in that traffic island that you see there. It was put up by the 10th Congressional District Men's Service Club, and it honors Chicagoans who died in the First World War. And incidentally, also according to Dennis McClendon, Ashland would be the longest street in Chicago. Western is all, everyone says Western's the longest street in Chicago. Right. Ashland would be, but it's interrupted for that little stretch where it merges in with Clark, it disappears, and then it reappears, and that knocks it out of the running. So it is not the longest street in Chicago. Western is.
Geoffrey, thank you. Interesting stuff.
My pleasure.
For more information on these Chicago landmarks, be sure to visit our website. And if you have a question you'd like to ask Geoffrey, or a question about wine and spirits for alpinisting, you can email us at askwttw@wttw.com, or you can call 773-509-5360 to leave a voice message with your question. That number again, 773-509-5360.